Welcome, Power fans. We have made it to the Book 2 Season 3 finale. My name is Ismail
Mm.
Abdul Salam of BeatsBoxingMayhem.com and also the Beats Boxing Mayhem YouTube channel. I cover hip hop, boxing, TV, film, and true crime. So if you like any of that content, please like and subscribe. But now I'm not here alone. I have an illustrious co-host. You'll know this woman for all of her great Hollywood and red carpet work out in LA. You also know her from the Bad Culture TV YouTube channel. And you'll also know her from her work with Rolling Out and also Black Girl Nerds. I'm here with none other than Giandra LaBeouf. Giandra, how you feeling out there in LA?
I'm very good. I'm wearing my all black, because we don't know if Kane made it or not. So I'm paying homage to my boy Kane with his silly self today. And hopefully we'll find out and we'll get some insights. But I'm very excited to be here and very excited to talk power with everybody.
Exactly. And we had to join forces because we couldn't do it alone. We had to do justice to our special guest. This man started out in a different place at the beginning of the season, and now heading into season 4, I feel he's the most important character, probably the hottest free agent potentially out in the streets. I'm here with none other than Kyle Vincent Terry, and you know him as Obi Okeke. Kyle, thank you for making time, brother. Pleasure to talk to
Thank
you
you.
today.
Thank you so much for having me. I gotta say, one, huge Black Girl Nerd fan. And two, at some point, we gotta be all here to talk about boxing. Cause if you're a fan, I mean,
Because I do a boxing show too. We both do boxing shows.
Let's go. I actually got a cousin working his way to the amateur ranks right now. Trying to he'll be around. He'll be around. Shout out to Vincent Terry.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, yeah, we'll cover all of that. Yeah, boxing, we've been in boxing for over 10 years. We'll be doing some deep dive stuff into that.
I love it.
So starting off with the finale, there's so many places we can go, but I feel the best place to go would be the ending, the big epic shootout that we got. There's only one person that knew what was about to happen, and that was Obi. I don't want the fans to forget. Braden said that Obi was the one that tipped me off about this setup. So you're right in the middle. This war that Tariq is talking about, you can tip it either way. You can tip it to Noma's side, you can tip it to Tariq's side. I don't think anybody saw that at the beginning of the season. How was that journey seeing that character go from seeing as maybe just an henchman to so much more than that heading into season 4?
I mean, I would say it's interesting because in this universe, as an actor, you don't know a lot. You don't know a lot. So when it was time to work, I'm figuring it out as I go. And so it kind of presented an interesting journey, whereas I got to develop through listening. And so as things twist and turn, it's been great watching a level of depth in the character evolve as a human. And I think, Power being the drug soap opera that it is, there's a level of exhilaration that the fans get, and as an outside character that I get, that Obi gets, I should say more specifically. Whereas in I think coming in and seeing these young kids try to do business presents a very I'll say naive image, right? Like, how do you really understand what's engaged? And there's also that kind of Nigerian arrogance, right? But then watching as his understanding of Tariq develops, there's a level of respect there, right? An understanding of what the kernel of who that man is in development, as a young man in development is. And I actually think there's an interesting parallel in seeing oh, there's a level to which this person evolved into something more so than walking into it openly. And I think we share that in common. So it's been great to just bear witness to the development of it all.
From the time that you audition, we hear these great stories about how the audition started as one thing and then it grew into something else. How close is Obi, the version we know now, from what they gave you as this is what we think the character might be, and what kind of canon did you help develop for him? We have what we think is canon, but give insight on it.
Good question. Okay, so when they give you the character breakdown, generally speaking, I think character breakdowns are not really a highway map, just kind of topography, right? Like, hey, just know that he's this. and he's this. And that can mean an infinite number of things. So when they say, Oxford educated, raised in London, but clearly did his time in Nigeria. So it's like, okay, I'm thinking, well, he did all his time in London. Let's make him a little bit more of a Londoner. We'll start from there. And that's what I auditioned with. And so when I got the part, it was like, hey, you're working tomorrow. Okay. All right. So I'm with my pops. My pops had a stroke. So I'm like taking care of him as much as I can. I'm like with him that day. And I had to like call my sister, like, yo, you gotta come get this old man. Like, I gotta go to New York like right now. My stepmom's like, I didn't know you had to work. I was like, me neither. So I fly out, and then that morning I had a dialect session. And we kind of bounced ideas back and forth. It's like, okay, we'll make him a little bit more British, put a little bit of the Nigerian in there. And we worked it for a couple hours, hadn't reported the set yet. And when I got to set, I meet the producers and like, how's the dialect session? And I say, yeah, a little bit more British with that Nigerian accent. And they're like, no, definitely more Nigerian. Oh, okay. So I kind of got a retrofit in wardrobe and hair and makeup to find what that identity is like. And it became a game of like, where does his Nigerianness, his Nigeriosity come forward? And generally speaking, I tend to believe that like people revert back to what they grew up as when their emotions are high. So it's like, okay, finding little buttons to like pinpoint exactly where he was a little bit more Nigerian. And then like, find your way back to the more upright, educated, westernized version of himself. So I hope that answered the question, but it's been a hell of a journey. And then as we moved through the season, I would start ad-libbing things. Like I would find like little Nigerian gems and like Igbo that I would like drop in. And nobody ever said anything. So hey, if you don't tell me it's wrong, it's right. And so it just kind of folded in. And as the writers start to catch wind, they would start writing a couple more things in there. And it was great. And then all of a sudden, we were shooting episode 8. And I got the script and it was like, he's pulling teeth. And I was like, oh yeah, let's get it. Let's see him do some work.
I like that research because everything was fantastic, even down to the accent. And that was something that a lot of the actors, American actors, we get criticism about that. It's like, the accent doesn't quite hit, or, with Caribbean and African roles. But you never got that criticism at all. I never saw that anywhere online. So you did a perfect job nailing that authenticity and having it shine through in the role.
Thank you. For like the first 3 episodes I was on, I think half the staff was like, I would talk off camera and they just kind of be like, that's weird. Really? Like, where are you from? Chicago. Oh, you had me fooled. That's the highest honor you could get.
I mean, you're getting so good. I'm just waiting for next season when we get more, whatever that path might be.
Yeah.
Or you might have to hit us with that, you got to go all the way Nigerian with
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Jollof and the whole 9.
There's some interesting things in the future.
Okay.
Oh,
that's it.
Keep that in mind. The other big scene I think people are going to focus on is that meeting of the minds between Noma and Monet. People forget there was one man in the room, and that was you. Particularly with that scene, afterward kind of stuck with me, the whole idea of when we saw Monet and Tariq have that issue, you were showing your counsel. You've been counseling Monet, but you were counseling Tariq at that point too. Like, no, don't make a rash decision. On the surface, people will think it's because of the visa thing that he was helping you out with, but it's deeper than that. I want to know, when was the catalyst during the season for you when you felt that Obi started to respect Tariq more, and it wasn't just the whole, these guys are lazy Americans or just young kids, they don't know what they're doing? What was that turning point for Obi?
So to me, the clearest thing that stands out about Tariq in his interactions with me, as opposed to the other characters, was there was never any duplicity when he was urgent, right? So if he was like, look, I'll make this right, to me, in character, that's the highest compliment you could give someone. They give their word and they stick to it. So like even in the face of very extreme circumstances, it's like, no, I'll get it done. I'm like, don't make me regret this. And he didn't. Right. Like, in the end of the day, he came through. So I think there's a level of investment. And I also think there's a level of investment felt in my own backstory where, when you step up to do something and it's not typically what your makeup is, you have to adjust. And you might end up doing things you don't necessarily want to do. And the easiest thing to do is make a rash decision. And I think watching Tariq at the threshold of making a rash decision was like, I was there. Don't. Right. Like if there's a way to manage your emotions and do what's necessary, trust me, it'll work out. So, kind of it felt like big brother, little brother for a moment.
So then riddle me this, Kyle Vincent Terry. Tell me this.
Yes.
Howard Jones. Why didn't he just text Tariq when he knew Tariq was on his way over there instead of calling Braden?
Well, okay.
Nobody took any phones. They checked for the strap, but he didn't say, hey, put your phone in the sleeve like you go and see Dave Chappelle or something. He walked right on into the meeting. So I'm like, he could have gave a little text message or something to tip him off.
I have thoughts on this, but I don't want to lead anything that can be construed as future information, if I may say so. I have to kind of plead the fifth a little bit, but what's a diplomatic answer I can give that won't get the producers mad?
I plead the fifth, just like
you. I plead the fifth. Yes, I'm gonna plead the fifth.
That works.
So back with them. So now we get into this face off with Monet and Noma, and I mean, we still don't know where you lie in the whole situation. I know Obi looked very comfortable patting Mary J. Blige down. So what was it? Was this the first scene that you've had with Mary in the entire season? So what was that filming day? You report to work 1 minute, you're the henchman. Next thing you know, you rubbing down Mary J. Blige, a legend.
Yeah, I mean, it works out how it works out.
Win is a win.
Yeah, W's a W. I definitely told my father about that one. But I think okay, so it's always wintertime in the Power universe, right? Everybody got a fur line something on. And I am consistently in a 3-piece suit. It was July.
Ooh.
So we're in the same warehouse we've been all season. And I'm in the suit and an overcoat. I'm like, Yuri, can I please not wear the overcoat this time? Like, we're inside. It's like, oh, we need it for blood. We're going to wipe the blood on the jacket. It's like going to be a key moment. And we only got a double of the coat, so we can't do it on the suit. I'm like, all right, cool. So we're like in there. You got to turn the air off because of the sound. And she shows up, and she had done a concert the night before.
Oh.
So I think she had been out till like 3 a.m. and then was first to report for some coverage, right? So she was back at it at 7:30. And so she was kind of like in her world. And I mean, Caroline was fangirling out. And I'm just like, I'm honestly just taking it all in. Like I'm chilling with Mary J. Blige now. I'm sweating like crazy. And I'm trying to keep that undercover, but under wraps and under control. But like, it was definitely a moment in a pretty cool career thus far, and getting to meet quite a few people, where it was like a level up. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's famous people. I mean, like, Daniel Craig is famous. Like, I work with some famous people. And then there is Mary J. Blige. And I will say, like, I think there are some people where why they're that famous. And she's one of those. And it's not that she, radiates in a certain way, because she does, but it is just the level of professionalism she brings. Like, she showed up, she was game, she was sweating, she had the fan, but when it was on, she was with it. And I think between her and Caroline being the triangulation, I felt like I had the honor of being the audience in that moment, right? Of just like taking it in. And so as it played out, it was kind of a happy accident to be enamored with the energy between them and then have the violence happen as a sharp detour of that, where it's like, wait, what happened? To kind of bring me back to the reality of the world, the reality of the world in which we work. So it was amazing. I hope that answered your question. I can wax philosophical quite a bit.
For sure. Well, just one little wrap it up. So Power
Sure.
Gem #2. Why is it always winter in New York? Y'all can't get no summer fits, no linen, no barbecue. Nobody wants to have a barbecue at the Tejada spot.
Yeah.
Always winter.
I think, my thoughts are that it's easier to look fly in winter. That's my thought. It's way easier to dress people in an aesthetically pleasing way in the wintertime than it is in summer, because summertime, less clothing, hard to hide stuff. You can't really layer the way you want to layer. You can't put on, the Amiri down thing, the double hooded coat or whatever fly thing they got going on. You can't have Tom Brown suits. So to me, it's like a stylistic choice. And it's a little bit easier to control for heat.
Definitely agree. And like you mentioned, the violence made that scene very important, particularly to what was done to the relationship with now and Noma. It felt like there was a shift at that point. Before, I felt like it was all devotion. Now there's a little bit of fear there as well. Where do you feel the relationship stands now in Obi's mind? I feel like that was like a turning point for him as a character.
Well, the thing that changes the game is when, if you think that your family's secure, and that's the reason why you're doing it, now what? And now what is a great question, right? Like, as an actor, it's my favorite question. I hate when I know, what's coming next. So when there's like a hiatus coming, right? And, just simply in the business sense, there's just the thought of like, oh, well, my family's okay. So do I have to be as loyal to every decision this person makes? Do I have to fend for myself? When I question loyalty as a character, what's my natural instinct to defend the person that got me this far, or to reconcile with the fact that the person that got me this far is willing to put me in harm's way?
Very good.
And simply put, if I'm counsel to a person, and I'm not a very good second fiddle. I'm just not. But if I'm playing counsel to someone and they're now doing things that I think jeopardize the business, what do I owe them as their counsel? Because I don't feel as though my role is as a yes man. So if it's no, now we got to deal with no. And the fallout of no. Yeah.
Well, that's it. That's the major key. We have to see what the fallout is there a no? Where was Obi during that day when this showdown was getting ready to take place? Just the visuals of it was very, very beautiful. We finally get this long awaited showdown with Mary and with Mary's character Monet and with Noma, and then you get to flank these two powerful women, but it doesn't diminish your authority and your autonomy. You got a new scar and just what you mean to the organization. Is there a place where we can see him manipulating the situation? Forget Tariq and everybody else, but just with these two women in that moment, that he had enough respect to be in the room for that conversation, because he could have just been sent out.
Yeah, I think, yeah, what's the saying? Absolute power corrupts absolutely. I think there's always the thought of deviating from the script, as it were. I think, though, one of the cooler parts of moments like that is as kind of a very kind of taciturn masculine presence. There's no real there's not a whole lot of contention insofar as, like, I clearly know my place is secure here. If that needs to happen, however that shakes out, I follow what happens. But I'm secure here. If something has to happen, I'll deal with it myself.
Very good point. And building on that, I wanted to have a little fun now with the writers.
All right.
So we know that you're doing Noma's bidding. Whatever Noma says gets done, you get it done. So she's always been threatening to kill somebody if they don't move the product. Let's say something happened where Noma says, you know what? I need you to kill one of them. I'll let you choose who it is, but one of them needs to go to send a message. So you have the autonomy here as Obi. Who would you think Obi would pick and why if he had to eliminate one of the crew?
I mean, the first name that jumped into my head was Drew. And it's Drew purely because I actually think, as far as the story goes, Drew is the most consistently driven in the right direction. Even if he has, you know, the relationship stuff, the internal struggle, familial strife is who that family is. But he always seems to be kind of right on the track of trying to toe the line between doing straight business and being with and reconciling with the family. But I also think it's because I didn't really meet him till later. But if I were acting rash, I could easily. Just cause. Just because. Like there's I think there's a reflected arrogance with Kane that feels like one of us gotta go, just from an ego standpoint.
I like that answer because Drew, to me, out of everyone, seems like the biggest wild card. You know, he has a lot of qualities that are most like Monet in that he wants to take his place in the power, in the structure, at the top of the structure.
Sure.
Wants someone by his side who also is in the game, kind of like Monet and her late great husband, who she had to cap. Yep. But he seems the most dangerous because he can be ruthless. It takes a lot of ferocity to kill your own lover over the course of this, no matter what. When we look in the old, you know, Tommy took out, you know, his first girlfriend, the redhead in the
right.
But she wasn't really in the game. She was kind of messing the game up a little bit. So I don't know. Maybe he has that kind of ruthless Tommy thing yet, but we just haven't got there to see it.
He's my sleeper pick. He's my sleeper pick. He's always been my sleeper pick. Where I'm like, I don't know. I think, you know, if this was Succession, he would be the one that got the go ahead.
Really? Okay. So you think out of the Tejada kids, he's the best one to lead or be the successor if Monet's no longer in the picture?
He seems like the most natural, eventual choice. But, you know, it's power.
Exactly.
You know, I've enjoyed, you know, we talked earlier about the cadence of your voice and leaning more into British or leaning into being Nigerian. But even within that, some of the most fun moments to me of the show is when you get to drop a little zinger and say something funny to the other castmates. Is developing the cadence to clown somebody a bigger challenge than kind of speaking and having a whole monologue or a whole free-flowing conversation? Because there's a certain amount of like body and however delivers a joke. So how do you get the accent right without sounding like, you know, Vampire in Brooklyn with the accent?
Well, okay, so I grew up with a lot of Nigerians in Chicago. So like there's a level of attitude that they can hit you with that's either really like hard, kind of percussive, or something that kind of just dances in the air. And then they just move on. And so to me, it lent itself to my natural comedic cadence. I worked in comedy a lot. It's actually harder to be comedic than it is to be dramatic. So it was really just like, how do you say this in a way that the person knows that they're insulted right after you left?
Yeah, those are the best.
Right? Because I don't want to fight with you. I just want to leave you with this thought that you're an idiot. and it's like on a time release. You know what I mean? Like how do you just send it and like, wait a minute, what did he just say? He's gone. He's out. So yeah, I think there's a level of there's a delivery of like arrogance where I don't need to watch it land. I can just do it and move on, and it'll hit you when it hits you, which I know will be later because you're a little slower.
I think you hit that perfectly because I was thinking before about, we see online a lot, they call them diaspora wars, where you see a lot of us arguing back and forth, different types of Black people. And it seems like because you grew up around Nigerians, that allowed you to hit that so easily with that timing. I think that's why you're so on point with that. Very good point.
Thank you. It honestly is I think getting roles that allow for brutality and humor, especially I have to say for us is rarer. I think there's a level of finesse that's required, and so getting to do it in this setting was amazing. Like I mean, it's amazing. I think there are a few times I really get to flex all of the stuff, and so this feels like like I'm a kid in a candy store. Give it to me. So thank you. Yeah, I really enjoy it.
So in that same token of being a kid in the candy store, there was supposed to be an additional power book around Councilman Tate that got canceled. So now I'm like, would Power in Africa work? What do you think about that? Obi in the league? The Nigerian side? Maybe.
I'd be with it. I'd be with it. Like, I mean, I think the good thing about this story is that because it spiders and has all these little tributaries that flow out. The concept of to use the old phrase, being in too deep can work anywhere. And I think the concept of a different, and I would say, potentially more competitive market in say like Nigeria, not to downplay the American market, but I think would add a level of rhythm that I think this could hold in an interesting way. I think it'd be incredible. I hate that the Alderman Tate story didn't go forward because I think that would be amazing. But hey, I think there's so much more to come. So
I must ask you, since you you're a comedian, you have a lot of comedic work under your belt.
Yeah.
So I had a good cackle at Gianni posting the game party and his poor little scared to death. Were you at the party? And
I wasn't at the party.
That?
I wasn't at the party, but I've been to so many like it. And if I bring my white friends, I'm like, hey, we're not actually mad. We're not actually mad at each other. We're having a good time. So like, I wasn't at it, but I was like, oh, that's family. I like that. It does remind me a lot of my own family. We are brutal with each other. We're brutal with each other. It's like my father's my father, and he got 4 kids. So, oh no, I'm sorry. He has 5 kids.
Okay. Got it.
I'm not gonna tell you who I forgot.
Say no more.
That person's gonna know exactly who they are. They see, that's why nobody invites you over for Sunday.
Right. Sorry. I'll be fine.
Now, you did mention that, you're sorry that the Councilman Tate, his storyline isn't going forward. I am too. I felt like there was a lot of potential there. But there's also a lot of characters Obi hasn't had scenes with yet. We mentioned Councilman Tate, Davis, Tasha, the whole Weston storyline with RSJ. For the next season, who would you want to have that first screen time with that you haven't had yet out of all those characters?
It's easily Davis McLean. Like, first of all, it's Method Man, bro. Like,
sir,
it's Method Man. It's like, but I think there's something so conniving and dirty, but still knowledgeable and still formidable about that, where it's like that. It naturally lends itself to something that could be the relationship I find the most, which is like that adversarial admiration, right? Like where you're like, I don't like you, but I respect you. You know what I mean? Like I get it. I get it. I certainly don't think they do business in the same way, but I think that's what would make it pop. Like, it's not my game, but it has been peaked.
Or maybe they do business in the same way because he's an attorney who went somewhere and he knows his way clearly around the gun and the N-word. So, he clearly can reside in both worlds. Maybe
True.
they are stronger adversarial people than, say, Obi and Drew. Maybe there is a way now that they have to collide. We're gonna find out Obi is a lawyer. That's what he was doing.
The whole time. He was moonlighting.
Well, this has been a fantastic discussion. Can't wait to see what you do in season 4. So we're going to keep an eye on that. I'll be very upset if you get taken out like in the first couple episodes. We need to make sure we see you through the entire season 4. I don't need Noma finding out what you told Tariq. We need to hold that off.
Right.
So hopefully we'll get to see you throughout season 4. But now we get
much
to
appreciated.
Because you mentioned that you love boxing. So let me tell you right off the bat.
I do.
This new fight that's been announced, Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence. I'm picking Crawford. Deandra is going with Spence. We got to have you be the breaker. Who are you picking in that one?
I mean, all right. So to me, in Errol Spence, you got, what I think of as the immovable object. You got Terrence Crawford as the unstoppable force. I would pick Bud, but like, it's only because I got to pick. I think like Errol Spence is about as strong at that weight as it's going to get. Like that dude is hard to budge and he hits hard. And he's sound, but like, I don't know, as a fight, I just can't think of anybody other than Bud Crawford to just have the will to chop that tree down, because that dude's a monster. That dude's a monster. I love him. I love them both. But yeah, I'm going Bud. I just like him more.
Okay, there you go.
Who do you want to see Tank fight next? There's a lot of choices. There's Shakur. There's Devin.
Yeah, no. I don't think Devin's ready. I just don't think Devin's ready. I think he's tall, solid jab. I just don't think he's ready for Tank Davis. I think Shakur's movement is about as close to Tank right now, say for Loma, but like, I think Shakur's movement is so good and so precise that he would give Tank some problems. I think he could give Tank some problems. And I think Tank is kind of a de facto superstar right now, but I think Shakur is a true superstar. So I think like as he develops, he's a sugar now, right? So I think if I'm wanting to see a fight, I want to see those two go at it, because Tank's incredible, and I think Shakur is just going to keep getting better and better and better. And his, I don't know, just watching his upper body movement and his lower body, I'm like, this kid's got it. Like, he's got it. I love watching him. I think his personality is great. Not that anybody else is a slouch. And yeah, that's the one to me where I'm like, I'll pony up the cash. Let's take the trip. I don't need to watch it on TV. I watch it in person.
Now we only have a few minutes left. I wanted to make sure we had time to plug that beautiful artwork that you got behind.
Yeah. So I work in multiple mediums. This is pencil and pastel, and this one's watercolor. It'll end up with some oil on it too. That's a little starting of Lassane Crooks there, Tupac as a baby. I'm working on a couple projects involving, one project specific, kind of referencing young hip hop artists as they were before we knew them and as they got older, because I think there's something so interesting about the difference between, like, to speak of it like a Tupac and a DMX, who I think are analogs in a lot of ways. The bigger difference was obviously DMX had a harder upbringing, but we also got to see him age. and the toll that life can take on a person, but also the depth it allows someone to achieve as they age in their humanity. So that's one of the things I'm working on. But mostly, I'm just trying to explore. I think as an actor, we learn about response and listening. And, when you work with something like watercolor, it tells you whatever it wants to do. You could try, but at some point, it's like, I'm going over here. So, like, I think it fine tunes the the eye for what's happening, as well as understanding color a little bit more, and just capturing expression in as intimate a way as possible with your own interpretation. So I probably started drawing before I learned to do anything else. And I took a long break, and then I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna get good at this. And before my mom passed, she said, at some point you're gonna do that professionally. So I'm trusting it.
Absolutely. Always trust mom. Kyle, thank
Yeah.
you so much for your time. We have to do this again in season 4. Looking
Yeah.
forward to it, man. And keeping
After that fight.
Right. Definitely
We can
after the
also
fight.
talk after that fight, because I'm interested. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, brother. See you
All
soon.
right.